Hey all, WebCamParrot here to talk to you about what is probably Hal Jordan's most iconic story of his descent into the feared villain known as Parallax. I personally think that this arc is most enjoyable if you cast aside everything you have previously heard or know about Parallax. Try to experience it as a fresh reader. I will mostly be going over his power in this video, but there are a certain amount of story elements that I need to explain as well. So get ready for the story of the villain who, perhaps other than the Anti-Monitor, has caused more death and destruction than anyone. This character arc could have been said to have truly started during the reign of the Superman era, when Hal Jordan came back to Coast City to find it destroyed and in ruins, thanks to the efforts of Mongol and Cyborg Superman. Obviously enraged at the sight of this, Hal Jordan would find and confront Mongol, who up until this point had been a threat that usually took an entire team to face. Hal is performing extremely well against the Warlord, but can't directly use his ring on Mongol thanks to his yellow skin, and is forced to face him indirectly. Mongol's strength was so immense that it was able to easily overpower Hal's ring directly, allowing him to easily toss the Green Lantern around. Hal is clearly losing, that is, until he comes across Steel's hammer lying there on the ground. Putting all his force into one all-out swing with this hammer, Hal is able to take out the alien warlord in one shot, avenging his fallen Coast City, the place he had always lived and protected. But the damage was done, and Hal would never be the same. Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, possibly the hero that knows Hal the best, even recognizes that something is up, that the Green Lantern is different, wrong even. This all comes to a head during the storyline known as Emerald Twilight, where we see Hal sitting dejectedly in the ruins of Coast City, the city he failed to protect. Using what little energy he has left, he creates a one-to-one recreation of the city with his ring. However, this is a violation of the Green Lantern Corps' rules, and a projection of a Guardian arrives to tell him just as much, shortly after his power ring runs out of energy. He is ordered to give up his ring and come back to Oa, but refuses, instead absorbing this Guardian projection, saying that he will be going back to Oa, just not in the way they intended. We see that Hal Jordan is well known as the strongest of all the Green Lanterns to have ever served the Corps, but now he's gone rogue. On the way, he runs into Kihan and Vava, also Green Lanterns, that try to stop him but are easily taken out by Hal, who takes their rings from them after his victory. Tomar too arrives, attempting to tie up Jordan using a parasite whose grip he says is virtually unbreakable, with Hal saying that his will is far greater than Tomar 2's, and that there is no way he can hold him, let alone defeat him. Hal then promptly takes him out with a single blast, also taking his ring before continuing to Oa. It's obvious that the Guardians have set up some sort of defense, as the Green Lantern Chance, who has given Lobo trouble in the past, also arrives only to be defeated as well. More and more and more lanterns arrive and fall, none of them able to stand up to the willpower of Hal Jordan. Boudica is likewise defeated, but refuses to give up her ring, and so Hal simply tears her arm off, forcing the matter and adding it to his collection. Even Kilowog, undoubtedly one of the greatest amongst them, is taken out with little issues, despite giving his best. In desperation, the Guardians release Sinestro from his confinement in the Central Lantern Battery as their last line of defense. With this many rings at his disposal, it seems as though Sinestro has no chance of a fair fight at all, something that he points out to Hal, who promptly drops the rest of his rings on the floor. Without this advantage, we see their powers clash in what is seemingly a tie, as the Guardians watch on, unable to do anything, thanks to recently being depowered. The fight continues for a time, but Hal is finally shown coming out on top when he snaps Sinestro's neck, killing him. Until Kilowog once again shows up, this time without his ring, sending Hal flying with a punch. But this time, Jordan is having none of it, and unleashes a blast from his ring, vaporizing all the flesh from his closest friend amongst the lanterns, killing him instantly. Clearly distraught, Hal throws his ring to the side and climbs the stairs to the central lantern battery, throwing himself in. As Jordan is absorbing the entirety of this battery, the Guardians decide to unite all of their power together, creating one last Green Lantern ring, resulting in the death of all of them except the final Guardian, Ganthet. And from the shattered remnants of the battery, we get our first glimpse of Parallax. This last and arguably most powerful of the Lantern Rings is given to a completely random human on Earth, who just so happens to be Kyle Rayner, now the last of the Green Lanterns. Aware of what has transpired, we see the heroes of Earth gathered together to hunt down and face off against Hal, including a number of powerhouses like Alan Scott, Captain Atom, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Guy Gardner, and the Ray. We see more of the Lanterns that were killed by Hal as he journeyed to Oa in these scenes as well. It's worth noting here that at this time, Guy Gardner is stronger than he has ever been before, thanks to a huge power boost he received due to his unique ring. This difference is actually so vast that even the Darkstar Ferrin Kolos couldn't scratch him. Despite this immensely powerful team-up, most of them stood virtually no chance against Hal once they arrived on Oa. Captain Atom, Wonder Woman, and the Ray are all one-shot immediately, and Martian Manhunter is taken out with a special brand of Green Lantern fire. Despite having conquered his weakness to fire at the time, these flames are simply too hot and take him out anyway. Alan Scott is one of the only fighters there able to put up a proper fight, but he is quickly taken out by Parallax, leaving just Guy Gardner. Parallax understandably struggles with Guy, as his ring only becomes more powerful the more energy that Hal uses, but he circumvents this by prying the ring from Gardner's hand and casting him down to the planet below. Hal finishes off Guy, telling him that he was holding back the entire time as he didn't want to kill anyone, sending him back to Earth with a warning that Parallax will stop anyone that gets in his way, and that he'll be remaking everything, undoing everyone's mistakes. This is when the event 0 Hour begins. You'll have to bear with me because 0 Hour is a very weird comic that constantly jumps between different periods in time, so I'm just going to present things in the order they are given to us in the comic, more or less. The event starts with the death of the Time Trapper at the end of time, who is himself an incredibly powerful cosmic entity that I have covered in a video before. We see him totally annihilated by some mysterious figure who ruminates on the location they are in, saying that the end of time is an interesting place. Entropy crushes all energy, all life, but that from here you can look back on all that is and all that was and change it. But he plans to remake it all, the entire time stream. The countdown to 0 Hour has begun. On Apocalypse, we see the new god Metron has arrived to warn Darkseid of the impending danger, and to ask for his help, saying that the universe, even time itself, is unraveling. Darkseid, however, ignorantly rejects this notion, forcing Metron to find allies elsewhere. At the Vanishing Point, a location outside the time stream just before the end of time, we see the Linear Men observing their chronoscopes, which are supposed to be observing the 71st century, but show nothing but the white at the end of everything. Time and the universe are being destroyed, a phenomenon that started at the end of the time stream and has begun to work its way backwards. Wave Rider investigates this effect, finding a hugely destructive vortex destroying both space and time as it approaches, and despite his power he can't possibly hope to close it. Kadabra suggests that the Flash might be able to cancel out this effect by creating his own counter-vortex, which he decides to try. But despite his best efforts, he simply can't run fast enough to generate the necessary energy, and Wave Rider is left holding nothing but Wally West's suit. Metron approaches Batman and Superman for their help, claiming that everything, Apocalypse, New Genesis, the Earth, and the rest of everything will be gone forever if they don't act soon. A Hal Jordan from 10 years in the past tries to stop this vortex, but only succeeds in slowing it down, and Hawkman, with his own incredibly complicated lineage, is split into 6 as time begins to break. The 50,000-year-old and very immortal Vandal Savage fades out of existence as his birth no longer exists. Wave Rider mourns the loss of infinite worlds, and says that now, not just the future, but also the past is beginning to unravel, and we get our first glimpse of the being responsible for this. Extant, a powerful temporal manipulator who holds the power of the Whirligog, or Philosopher's Stone if you prefer. Brainiac 5, in the future, sends a probe out into the time vortex in an attempt to understand it, and Highfather, attempting to reach out into the cosmos, finds only death and entropy, saying that even Darkseid could never accomplish something on this scale. Wave Rider tells us that the Hal Jordan we saw earlier, the one from the past, has perished, but as I'm sure you've all guessed by now, Parallax is more than fine, meaning that even killing Parallax in the past won't stop him. The JSA, including Alan Scott, Jay Garrick and Dr. Fate amongst others, head to the Vanishing Point to confront Extant, but are utterly wiped out in moments, despite magic cast on them that should prevent the group from aging. Only Alan Scott is able to resist these blasts of chronal energy being unleashed by Extant, thanks to his lantern ring protecting him, but even this fails as Extant simply uses his powers to drain all of its charge. Wave Rider attempts to confront Extant, who reveals that he is also Wave Rider, immediately sending them spiraling back into the time stream. Upon their return, Wave Rider says that Extant plays with the extremes of time the way a baby might play with building blocks. Even Wildcat with his 9 lives was immediately killed by Extant. A combination of Captain Atom's powers and the Mobius chair is able to stop one of these vortexes and the destruction of the future. We see 2 different Extants from different points in time merge themselves together, combining their strength. And the same shadowy figure from the start of the comic is shown recreating the vortex that was destroyed, then travelling to Extant, claiming that Extant has run amok in his plans for long enough, blasting him and saying that he will easily remove Extant if he gets in his way again. Time Trapper has regenerated from his previous death, only to be immediately wiped out for good this time by the same assailant, with Time Trapper saying that he knew this would come eventually as he needs his power to complete the plan. Despite initially refusing to help when Metron asked earlier, the Spectre finally decides to get involved after being convinced by Jay Garrick. At the end of time, we finally see who has been responsible for all of this from the start. None other than Parallax, who sends Superman to the ground in a single punch. It's over. All time is over. This is 0 hour. Parallax is going to create a new universe, a new everything, even saying that perhaps this time just one universe won't be enough. It's again stated that Parallax has destroyed all of existence and plans to remake everything. When he first entered the time stream directly, Hal found a reserve of chronal energy there left over from the Crisis on Infinite Earths and absorbed all of it. He claims that this entropy energy is the greatest destructive force imaginable, that the beginning and end of time are linked, a perpetual loop, and all he had to do was tighten that loop, causing everything in between to cease to exist. The heroes come up with a plan, however. They can't just let Parallax recreate everything as he wishes, and so they will instead do it themselves. The heroes go to confront Parallax, but can't even put a dent in him, with Jordan saying that he has the power to kill Superman if he wanted to. Fortunately, the Spectre arrives just in time, facing off directly against Parallax, but even he is quickly overwhelmed, being taken out by Hal despite the Ray and several other heroes absorbing power directly from him. Thanks to the Spectre's sacrifice, the team is given the time they need to absorb all of this chronal energy, gathering all the energy necessary for a new creation. Thanks to Batgirl paying the ultimate price in order to protect Damage, and a nudge from the Spectre, a huge blast is unleashed, recreating everything once again, as a now near powerless Parallax is shot in the chest by Green Arrow and believed dead. Along with the recreation of the time stream and the rest of existence with it, we see Time Trapper reborn once again. Parallax survived all of this, however, and was cast back into the re-emerging creation on some isolated rock out in space, where he is yet again confronted by the Spectre. However, now depowered, he is really no match for the Spectre, who begins to judge him. However, looking into Hal's past, Spectre remembers another time they had confronted each other like this before. It was shortly after his victory against Evil Star. The Spectre had come to serve divine vengeance upon Evil Star, but Hal stopped him, saying that Evil Star was fundamentally a good person who had been sent down a bad path, and that the soul within him, trying to break free from Starbrand's power, deserves a chance at redemption. Spectre is moved enough by this to spare Parallax, knowing that he still has the potential for redemption inside him too. After this, we see Parallax has returned to Oa in an attempt to recuperate his lost power there, but is stopped by Kyle Rayner and they start to battle. Despite being virtually powerless, Hal puts up a good fight, but is repeatedly prevented from drawing on the power within the planet as he doesn't have a Green Lantern ring anymore. Parallax sees the bones of Kilowog and becomes mournful, reflecting upon his own actions and regretting the mistakes he has already made. Kyle relates to his struggles and as a result is convinced into giving Jordan the ring which he uses, which he begins to use to take the power from within Oa, which of course Kyle immediately regrets, and thanks to an unexpected surprise attack he is able to take his ring back from Parallax, partly thanks to it being tied to his own DNA and not Hal Jordan's. However, Hal has now absorbed enough power to fight back effectively, and quickly wins, but eventually decides to instead show Kyle the image of his dead girlfriend, someone that Parallax plans to bring back when he remakes everything. Kyle sees through this tactic though, and instead immediately shoots a beam down into Oa, overloading it and causing it to explode. Kyle Rayner survives this huge explosion, but Parallax is nowhere to be seen, and the Green Lantern assumes that he perished in the exploding Oa. However, we are shown that Hal survived this in Green Arrow, when he decides to meet up with Oliver Queen. Whilst there he demonstrates that he still has the power to teleport, and even reshapes reality around him, causing all sorts of effects. Hal somehow has knowledge of Oliver's son, which causes the latter to immediately run off, and we see Jordan turn back into his Parallax costume and teleport away. Elsewhere on Earth, Ganthet has decided that Kyle Rayner is no longer fit to be a Green Lantern, given his weak abilities. But just as this is happening, Hal arrives, also demanding the ring. But Kyle doesn't want to give up the ring, and Ganthet doesn't want Hal to have it either, with Jordan saying that he could simply take it if they won't give it to him. This leads to a conflict, and Parallax again emerges. Kyle is no match for him, however, and is easily overpowered, with the Guardian saying that he will never defeat him, deciding to teleport away instead. The fight continues back and forth, with Kyle holding his own, despite his obvious disadvantage in power, up until Parallax reveals that he has been holding back the entire time, easily putting Kyle through the ringer. Whilst this fight was going on, however, Ganthet had been gathering allies to take on Parallax, appearing with the Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, The Flash, Hawkman, and Green Arrow. Unsurprisingly, Hal is able to overpower all of them pretty easily. Ganthet exits the scene once again, realizing there is another he can go to. Hal finishes off the team of heroes and takes the ring from Kyle Rayner, powering himself up in the process. But just as he is doing this, Ganthet returns with Superman. Despite his new power-up, Superman performs far better against Hal than the others, but is eventually defeated by him as well. Ganthet makes a deal with Parallax. He may absorb the Guardian, and in return, Hal must give the ring back to Kyle, a deal that Jordan accepts willingly. After this is the start of the event known as Final Night, which heralds the arrival of a Sun Eater come to consume Earth's sun. Even this intimidating name sells the Sun Eater short though, as they mostly exist in a separate dimension, and are so large that even boom tubes, which can transport new gods, can't transport them. They consume not just the sun, but the mind and soul of the sun itself as well. This even affected and was killing the direct embodiment of the Earth, Gaia, a conceptual entity who is so powerful that even a small fragment of its being is able to contend with the Spectre. Hal Jordan, however, is elsewhere, having tracked Cyborg Superman through more than one universe. He finds him at the edge of New Earth at the Source Wall. Parallax says he's going to kill Cyborg Superman as revenge for Coast City, but Hank Henshaw tells him that he can't be captured or killed, that he is a being of pure energy that will always return. Hal, however, tells him that he has no intention of capturing him, that he's going to erase Cyborg Superman from existence. Parallax then overwhelms Hank Henshaw with a wall of Green Lantern constructs in the shape of his own victims, tearing him down to just a small mite of energy, and eventually squashing even that out, leaving nothing. Eventually, Parallax does come back to the Earth, where he heals John Stewart, who is in the hospital, also unknowingly giving him special powers in the process. Now aware of the Sun Eater, Jordan has a plan, and so releases Ganthet from his body and rejects the offer of a new Green Lantern ring. Lex Luthor, along with several other heroes, has come up with a plan to save the Earth from the oncoming supernova that the Sun Eater will cause, using a bunch of manufactured copies of Brainiac 5's force field generator to do so. However, someone will have to go potentially sacrifice themselves to set them up. Superman volunteers, but Ferrolad sneaks on board the spaceship before he can, as he knows due to the darkness brought by the Sun Eater that Superman does not have his powers and would likely die. Their attempts are too slow though, and Ferrolad is caught in the wave of the supernova, about to be annihilated by it when Parallax arrives just in time. The supernova is completely halted as Parallax casually stops time, saying that it was a trick he learned at the beginning of time. He then goes to confront the Sun Eater directly, absorbing it with one hand and recreating the sun with the other. The creature is completely destroyed and the sun repaired fully by his efforts, with the light of the new sun shining down upon the Earth, healing even that, and sacrificing himself in the process. We see Batman and Superman on the roof discussing recent events. Clark believes that Hal redeemed himself with this action, but Batman disagrees, saying that they should not make a martyr out of a murderer. Bruce goes on to say that one shining moment doesn't redeem Parallax, but Superman thinks Hal died a hero. Batman simply responds that it's too bad that he didn't always live as one. Parallax would next appear when he ambushes Warrior Guy Gardner and John Stewart, strangely demanding to know where Hal Jordan is. In an attempt to gather this information, he easily overpowers Guy Gardner, with John Stewart soon following suit. Kyle intercepts Parallax before he can reach Hal Jordan, and they begin fighting. Kyle Rayner is confused at first, but Parallax explains that he time travelled there from Zero Hour to eliminate the Hal Jordan of their time, who himself is a past version that travelled forwards 10 years. Pretty confusing, I know. This was in order to clean up inconsistencies and paradoxes throughout his existence in time. Kyle Rayner does decently well considering the gap in their powers, but soon realises the problems of their fight in the first place, as without Parallax stopping the Sun Eater, the Earth will eventually die. This is when the other Hal Jordan shows up to help Kyle in his fight. Parallax wants to send this version of Hal Jordan back to the past, but this past Hal refuses, continuing to attack him. Of course, this doesn't work at all, with Kyle Rayner saying that time travel is basically hopscotch to Parallax, who then takes all three of them back to the moment that Coast City was destroyed. Parallax continues to explain that time is like a one-way road to most people, but that to him it's more like a book, and he can open to any page he wants to. Parallax tries to convince his past self that he can fix all of the damage that was done to Coast City, and that this is for the best. But Hal refuses and lashes out, continuing their fight. Parallax points out that they are the same, only that he is more experienced and has almost infinite power. But of course, he can't exactly kill a past version of himself like this either, without causing some problems. The past Hal Jordan says his willpower is just as strong as Parallax's, who points out that it's not about willpower anymore, it's just about power, after which their fight is interrupted by Kyle. Rayner explains everything that we know up until this point to them, that the Earth will die without Parallax, that 0 Hour will fail, everything. Eventually the two Hals agree, and all of them combine their powers to wipe their minds and send everybody back through time to where they are supposed to be, so that Final Night and 0 Hour can happen as they are supposed to. In the comic Dead Man Dead Again, there are yet more time travel shenanigans, where it's revealed that Hal would have died against Mongol if it wasn't for Deadman moving Steel's hammer within reach. However, this was all Neuron's plan all along. He always knew that if Hal Jordan survived, he would eventually become Parallax, allowing Neuron to take not only his soul, but the souls of all those he killed as well, empowering himself massively. This plan eventually failed thanks to the combined efforts of Deadman and the Spectre. If you are curious about this and other Neuron storylines in more detail, check out my 2-part Neuron video series covering the villain in detail. We would see a huge change in depiction of Parallax in the comic known as Green Lantern Rebirth. The comic starts with a hint at the impurity within the Central Lantern power battery, the same impurity that makes their powers useless against the color yellow. Kyle Rayner's ring speaks Parallax is coming, and Hal Jordan, now reborn as the Spectre, realizes that something has been clouding his judgment the entire time, something from before his connection to the Spectre. John Stewart, once again a Green Lantern, begins to lose it, immediately turning on the Justice League with his powers. Kilowog, in a similar state, is engaging with Kyle Rayner, who seems completely unwilling to use his ring for some reason, trying his best to avoid using it at all. Kyle is protecting something, but without his powers he stands no chance against Kilowog, who eventually reaches the casket Kyle was trying to protect, and inside we see the body of Parallax, and now Ganthet standing over it in defense. The Guardian is able to easily overpower Kilowog with an immense display of willpower energy. Kyle is forced to use his ring to protect himself, and we see him struggle with the mind of some great entity attempting to control him, an entity that already controls Guy Gardner, Kilowog, and John Stewart. You see, Green Lanterns are usually chosen for their lack of fear, but this lack of fear allowed the entity to sneak up on them. Kyle Rayner, however, was chosen at random, and as someone who knows fear, was less vulnerable to this form of control, allowing him to resist it. Ganthet goes on to say that hope is useless against this entity, that willpower is their only weapon. We see Hal Jordan struggling with some other side of himself, Parallax, and the Spectre Force likewise manifests to confront it. However, Spectre is unable to do anything as Parallax claims that even it is nothing but a host to him. Kyle Rayner explains to Green Arrow that he recently travelled out to the edge of the universe, and whilst he was there, he found something. A planet of people who lived in fear of a being who would destroy the universe. A being born at the beginning of sentience. A yellow entity made of fear, called Parallax. Many years ago, this entity threatened to consume the entire universe, and unable to destroy it with their green willpower energy, the Guardians sealed it within the Central Lantern power battery, which caused the yellow imperfection. Thanks to this, Parallax had a direct connection to everyone wearing a power ring, and despite its best efforts, could not take control of Hal Jordan until the destruction of Coast City, that is. This destruction allowed Parallax to graft himself onto Hal Jordan's soul, with his willpower now cast aside thanks to not being able to protect Coast City. The Spectre hoped that by also binding himself to Hal Jordan, that he would be able to burn Parallax out of his soul, but the yellow entity was too powerful even for the Spectre to accomplish this. Ganthet claims that his mind was purged of the existence of this yellow entity by Parallax, which is why he had no recollection of it up until now. Whilst Green Arrow and Kyle are discussing this, Sinestro arrives wielding some strange yellow energy. They begin fighting, and Sinestro explains that he orchestrated all of this from the beginning, including his death, which was the final thing that tipped Hal Jordan over the edge. You see, Sinestro was sealed inside the Central Lantern power battery just like Parallax, where he met the entity and discovered its existence. The Spectre begins to lose the tug of war for control of Hal Jordan's body as Parallax takes over once again, claiming that Hal Jordan's psyche may be a particularly strong one, but it is still only food for Parallax. Ganthet then arrives, claiming that he has freed Kilowoggs from the creature's influence, also warning Parallax that even the Spectre's power dwarfs that of the Guardians. A corrupted John Stewart and Guy Gardner try to intervene, but Ganthet cleanses both of them of Parallax's control as well. Now 4-on-1, Parallax still doesn't seem worried, but soon more reinforcements arrive in the form of the Justice League and several other heroes. Parallax's aura of fear and influence makes it difficult for them to fight him, however, and he starts to take the upper hand. It's at this moment that the Hal Jordan within breaks free, even without aid from the Spectre, forcing the Parallax personality out of his body, with Ganthet saying that Parallax chose the wrong soul to try and corrupt. The Spectre also manifests outside of Hal's body, and Jordan orders him to face off against Parallax, but seemingly hearing a call from the beyond, the Spectre slips away. Parallax takes the opportunity to dive inside of Ganthet, who as his last moment of defiance against it, sends out a guiding light for Hal Jordan's spirit. Following this light, he finds his old body still brimming with power, and regains his physical form. Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, is back, baby, and his first order of business is to take on Sinestro. The Yellow Lantern seems to take the upper hand, however, despite them clearly going back and forth. Kyle Rayner intervenes somewhat, but is mostly unable to do much, and Hal wins a power struggle between their two rings, forcing Sinestro to flee. Now possessing Ganthet, everyone except the Green Lanterns is being affected by Parallax's fear aura, leaving them to deal with it. They all attack Parallax at once, planning to seal him away again. John Stewart, Guy Gardner, and Kilowogg all fall before the creature, leaving just Hal left. Parallax tells Hal that he's weak, that he's scared, that he should give up now, but the Green Lantern just responds that he doesn't know how. Hal's perseverance in the face of such overwhelming power and fear gives the others the inspiration and time to pull themselves back up, teaming up once again to seal Parallax away, hopefully this time for good. Back during the event Blackest Night, they would actually have use of Parallax, as Spectre, now a Black Lantern, was on a rampage. Hal decides that he's going to release him to fight the Spectre, as the reason God's Wrath left the first time was because he was scared of the yellow entity. Hal tells them that he will be the host to the entity, but Sinestro disagrees, saying that he is the best candidate for the job. They have a brief scuffle, but Hal ends up becoming host to Parallax anyway. Happy to be back, Parallax takes the fight straight to Spectre. The force of God's Wrath tries to fight back, but Parallax tells him it's pointless, as he would sooner eradicate the colour yellow from reality than defeat him. Using both the green light of willpower and the yellow light of fear, Parallax easily overpowers Spectre as he has in the past, and dives inside of it towards the ring controlling it at its heart. The black ring is destroyed, and the Spectre is released from its control, but the fight isn't over yet, as Parallax still thinks the Spectre should be destroyed. The Spectre says that excluding the Anti-Monitor, Parallax has more blood on its hands than any other being he has faced. Of course, nothing has changed, and Parallax continues to easily bully Spectre around, even tearing off his face, and has to be restrained by Sinestro and the others. Atrocitus tries to turn the Spectre into a Red Lantern, but this fails, with the Spectre saying he has faced the Red Entity before, and that he fears the primal entities of emotions like Parallax. Using this fear as a connection, the Spectre is able to separate Hal Jordan and the Spectre thanks to his love for Carol, returning him to normal. In another comic, an alternate reality Parallax Hal Jordan from the past would show up in a 2011 Green Lantern issue. There, he would say his power far surpasses that of a single ring, and he would get into a fight with the Hal Jordan native to this reality. This Hal has access to a gauntlet with the power of 12 rings, but Parallax is unfazed by this, saying that he holds the power of 3600. Despite this huge advantage, the current Hal Jordan actually wins the fight, and Parallax leaves. During Convergence, we would see a Parallax from just before 0 Hour who was able to easily contend with a bunch of strange electricity-based tech that badly affected Kyle Rayner. In a fight with a user of the green, Parallax would also claim that he is much stronger than Swamp Thing, who had similar powers. He also one-shot Cyborg Superman again, this time by just punching him through the chest. And by far, most impressively during Convergence, he pretty casually just completely erased Deimos, who up until that point had been basically smacking everyone there. Even more impressively, Deimos had a huge amount of temporal energy within his body that even had Nyx, Votan, and Darkseid concerned. Enough energy to reshape the entire multiverse. So much energy that even God Brainiac was forced to sacrifice himself to achieve the same thing at the end of the storyline. Anyway, that's it for Parallax Hal Jordan for now. There are a couple of appearances for just Parallax, the entity of fear, that I didn't cover here, but the video is long enough already, and most of them aren't that interesting anyway. So that's it for this one. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.